After the Microsoft acquisition of Rare, there was still a few games in the tank. Games like Cameo, Grab by the Ghoulies, even Sea of Thieves. But arguably, most importantly amongst the Rare games released in its Microsoft era, so far at least, was one game that can only be described as filled with fun. Viva Pinata is a garden life simulator filled to the brim with rare charm and honestly, equally as fun. I rarely hear Viva Pinata talked about, but to be honest, that's a real shame because it was one of Rare's most unique and charming releases in my humble opinion. It may not be as iconic as some N64 entries, but let me tell you, its quality puts it pretty high up on the list. Why do I say that? Well, let me tell you, this is what makes Viva Pinata a game filled with fun. Hey everyone, quick pause to tell you about something truly awesome, Retro Planet. If you're a fan of all things nostalgic, mark your calendars for October 18th and 19th of 2025 because this ultimate retro experience is happening at the Fort Bend Epicenter in Rosenberg, Texas. Get ready for a weekend packed with pure fun for all ages. You can dive into free play arcades and retro games, or if you're feeling competitive, jump into the gaming tournaments where you could win a share of $1,000 in cash prizes. But that's not all. Explore a massive dealer's room filled with vintage games, consoles, rare cards, and classic toys. Plus, wander through the artist alley to discover incredible anime, gaming, and retro-themed art. And the guest list? It's epic. You'll have a chance to meet and greet incredible voice actors like Richard Epcar, among other special guests. Best of all, kids 10 and under get in for free. Ready to step back in time? Head on over to RetroPlanetTX.com for all the details and get ready for an unforgettable weekend. Let's start by taking a look at the development. The concept for Viva Pinata came from Tim Stamper himself, one of the heads of Rare. One day he found himself in his garden and seeing a strange creature hovering above a flower. He did a bit of research and identified it as a hawk moth. And after identifying it, he started doing research into things he could do to attract more of these to his garden. This prompted him to write a multiple-page game concept, and from there, the team then went to work conceptualizing the gameplay and how it could all come together. They initially started developing the game with the mindset of making it into a mobile title, looking specifically at the Pocket PC developed by Microsoft. By the time development had really begun on Viva Pinata, the Microsoft acquisition was taking place, so things were starting to transition over to Microsoft. But evidently, a prototype was started by a small team while still under Nintendo. We have several images of the mobile variant of the game and concept art to show stylistically what they were going for. You can also see a few early titles like Pinata, and apparently the original working title was Your Garden. Ryan Stevenson, who did the art and style for the game, initially started creating sketches of very cartoony animals. Nothing ever felt quite right though, and the team really wanted everything to have a unified style. But then he struck gold when he started incorporating luchador elements, and eventually landing on the Pinata aesthetic that tied the world together nicely. By this point, the team swapped over from mobile development to Xbox for the simple reason of wanting more graphical fidelity. But even at that point, the graphical style wasn't quite coming through the way they wanted, and eventually the development pressed forward to leverage the power of the Xbox 360. And with more power at their disposal, the team was able to create a colorful and vibrant world filled with many papery-looking pinata creatures. The game released in late 2006 and went on to receive positive reviews, though the team saw their vision as incomplete. The game spawned 3 other titles in the series, one game called Viva Pinata Party Animals, which is a Mario Party style game, more in line with the tie-in 4Kids TV show, a bit more on that later. The other 2 were more in line with the first game, Pocket Paradise released on the DS to give us a mobile version of the console experience, and Trouble in Paradise was a true sequel with more pinatas, a sandbox mode, co-op mode, and a desert and Arctic environment. This game is essentially the full vision of what the team wanted to do with the original game, as well as adding some simple quality of life updates. Now that we've learned a bit about the development, how about we chat a little about the plot and world building? Jardinero, aka the best gardener on Pinata Island, spent his life planting and growing his garden, attracting pinatas with the dream of attracting the legendary dragon egg, the rarest pinata of all. He met his wife, who was a ship hand on a ship that carried pinatas to parties, which was back in the days before they got shipped by Pinata Central. They ended up having 4 children, Stardos, Leafos, Storkos, and Cydos. He also had a student named Lester who he attempted to teach how to garden, but Lester would rather develop shortcuts instead and spend his time developing evil black and red sour candy. As Stardust got older, he impressed his father with his gardening skills, and Lester was no longer allowed to help out in the garden, so Lester concocted a plan. When Jardinero was away and Stardust was in charge of the garden, Lester led Stardust away from the garden to try his new sour candy, and had ruffians enter and destroy the garden while they were away. This incident caused Lester to become known as Professor Pester and the main antagonist of the series, dubbed so by Jardinero himself. Stardust also went missing, and eventually a new character named Dastardos showed up living in proximity to the garden. It's our duty to work with the residents and help Jardinero rebuild his garden and eventually, hopefully, attract every piñata to it. That's the basic plot of the game. Even in that small description, we got boatloads of lore to uncover. Jardinero has 4 children, each with strange abilities and personalities. It's heavily implied Dastardos is Stardust, and even gives implications that maybe the sour candy turns people and things evil. Even the residents of the garden are strange. Aside from the piñatas, we have helpers like Sprinkling, Gatherling, Weedling, and a few others that are just plain bizarre. Each with a function, but very strange indeed. All the characters have piñata masks, and it makes you wonder if these masks give them abilities, or if they are part piñata, or if this is just like normal clothing in this world. Maybe a bit of all of that? I certainly dive into some of these in my Mysteries of Viva Pinata video. Go check that out after this one. And other things in this world that continue to build it, like Pinata Central, sending piñatas off to parties. It's the goal of the piñatas. The world is filled to the brim with charm, and even has a few references to other rare properties. Most notably, we can see the plane from Grab by the Ghoulies, and get some awesome Banjo-Kazooie statues, among a few others. The connectivity to other series is always a fun nod and typical Rare fashion. The questions we have about some of these characters make me want to dive more into the lore, and as we progress in the game, we unlock more and more of the story and details. And speaking of progressing in the game, why don't we just chat about the gameplay for a little bit? As I've stated before, this is a garden life simulator style game. Essentially, you start with a run-down, gross-looking garden and Leafos crying in the middle. This prompts you to start cleaning it up and build the garden. You have a cursor and move it across the ground while changing its function. You can dig, plant, water, collect, and sell things. You'll have several shops and business folk to assist you in your gardening endeavors. You can buy various tools and different types of plants and seeds. Your goal is to clean up the garden and build various configurations of it depending what piñatas you want to attract, with the ultimate goal of getting every piñata and especially the mythical and legendary dragon egg. The way you attract the piñatas is very satisfying. Just as an example, say you want to attract a water-based piñata like Lickatoad. You'll need at least 10 square parameters of water, which is 1% of your garden just dedicated to being a pond. And then, to get one to stay and become a resident, you have different requirements, so you'll have to expand that to 2% and get it to eat a flutterscotch, which you must already have in your garden. As you can probably tell, it starts to get very in-depth very quickly in the process to attract specific piñatas, and there are over 60 species in the original game, and if you're playing Trouble in Paradise, it totals to 88. On top of the mechanic of attracting piñatas and getting them to be a resident, you can also evolve them by meeting certain conditions. For instance, keeping the same species as an example, if you feed the nightshade berry to a Lickatoad and smack it with your shovel before it gets sick, it will become a Lackatoad. The evolutions give you even rarer piñatas, and on top of these, there's also a breeding function. It's called romancing, and if you meet the requirements for romancing, you can get 2 piñatas of the same type to do a romance dance. Before each dance, you'll be prompted to play a brief minigame where you take control of one of the piñatas and guide them through a maze or obstacle to get them to the other piñata, potentially collecting some coins in the process. And then, you just might get an egg that'll hatch into that piñata type. And as you can see, the variation in requirements is what keeps you ultimately working on your garden. I'd almost say it's better to play this game without a strategy guide, so you have a sense of discovery of all these different creatures. And then you can ask yourself, if I plant a bunch of this, what will show up? You may be surprised at what you can find. And that's the draw to Viva Pinata: experimentation and implementation while trying to make your garden look interesting and building it how you'd like. It's also a matter of attracting and getting your favorite piñatas to stay as residents, to make your garden just the way you want it to be. Various kinds of sour piñatas will show up to eat your other piñatas, or ruffians or even Pester himself will show up to destroy your garden and piñatas. Your piñatas can also get sick, and if you don't get them treated by the helpful doctor, Destardos will hover over them and put them out of their misery. The gameplay itself is very satisfying, and it's ultimately one of those loops that you say you'll hop into for 30 minutes to an hour and end up getting sucked in for like 6. If you've ever had any interest in farming simulators, crafting mechanics, and fun gameplay loops, this is a game you will want to try out. And now, why don't we talk about another draw, the graphics? I won't spend too much time in this section, because it's sort of self-evident, but I really think it's worth talking about the unique style and art direction of this game. The piñatas themselves are a unique idea, but each piñata is unique themselves, and animated to reflect the animal they represent. The papier-mâché style look really does unify everything in this world, and the environment is very bright and colorful. This is a game where graphical fidelity and the art direction needed to be good, because you'll be staring at the same environments and areas for long periods of time. And the addition of piñata-like qualities on the NPCs adds this sort of mystique to it all. The more you stare at these characters, the more details you see, and if you're like me, question. And the details get even further realized in the animated spin-off by 4Kids Entertainment. It's a very silly, over-the-top animation that released with the original game. And while the game has piñatas that act more like their animal counterparts, the TV series gives them human-like personalities and names. It's a funny departure, and future games ended up taking some inspiration from the show. The best thing we got from that series, though, is the theme music. This is such a boppin' tune.
Viva Pinata, filled with fun. Filled with fun! Don't be enjoying them. Viva Pinata, filled with fun. Filled with fun! Viva Pinata, don't be enjoying.
And while we're on that, throughout the whole game you're blessed by legendary tunes. The music of Viva Pinata was composed by Grant Kirkhope. Yes, the composer of Banjo-Kazooie also did this soundtrack, and the only way to describe it is it's a banger. The overall feel and vibe of the tracks are as you'd sort of expect with a Garden Life Simulator style game, chill and relaxing. You'll hear a lot of woodwind instruments, piano, and bell-like sounds. It reminds you of a sunny day in summer, or at least me, I guess. Here are a few clips of some of my favorite tracks. And as a bonus, here's a beta track for the game. Well, what else can I say about Viva Pinata? It's charming, it's a blast to play, easy to get in and grasp and start building, and it gets more and more complex as you go. I could easily sink a ton of hours into it, and in fact, I have. It's a solid Rare title, and honestly one of the best ones while Rare has been under the Microsoft umbrella. Don't be on the fence with this one. It's worth a play, and dare I say, it's filled with fun. Well, that's all I have for you. Please drop a like in this video. It really helps spread my content and lets me grow. And also subscribe so you can see other videos like this one. I have so many others. Until next time, have a good one. Jiggylookback!